Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today as we come together to learn more about PowerShell Fundamentals. My name is Hassan Mohsin. I'm the Program Manager for Microsoft Reactor in Abu Dhabi. Microsoft Reactors are hubs for founders and developers to meet, learn, and connect to local peers, as well as industry-leading ideas and technology from Microsoft, partners, and the open source community. It's also home to the Microsoft for Startups program. With a diverse mix of hands-on workshops, expert panels, and community events, there's something for everyone. Check out our calendar of events on meetup.com and join our coming sessions. Our speaker today is Satesh. Satesh is an award-winning information technology professional with a decade of experience, awarded as Office Server and Services MVP by Microsoft for the year, specialized in Microsoft Cloud, Office 365, Microsoft Exchange. He conducted numerous projects worldwide in designing, supporting, and implementing messaging and virtualization infrastructures for medium-sized businesses to large enterprises. Feel free to ask questions during today's session. We will have regular stops to answer your questions, and also feel free to tweet about the session and tag us on Reactor Abu Dhabi and MSFT Reactor on Twitter. And also make sure you adjust the playback settings to select the highest quality for the best quality and experience in today's session, since we'll be using the terminal and coding and all these sort of things. And also keep an eye on the Q&A tab. This is the part where you connect with us, you ask questions, and I share some links and resources relating to today's session. And with all that said, I hand over the mic to our speaker to start today's session.
Hey, hi, Hassan. Thank you for the brief introduction and thank you for arranging the session. And hi, guys, and thank you for joining. And we will learn PowerShell fundamentals today, like why we need PowerShell and what is the use cases of PowerShell. You know, how it's used in the enterprise environment. I've been spending quite a while in PowerShell, so there's a lot of tips and tricks which I would like to share. I'm sure we will learn something together. If you guys have any doubts, just post a question on the Q&A. If we can answer, we will answer most of the questions. If we couldn't answer, we will definitely get back to you. So let's get on to the session and we'll see. Okay, then I'm going to share my screen. If hopefully the text is much easier to read. If you guys have any trouble reading it, let us know. I can make the size a little bit bigger. So okay, so let's go on to the session, like why we need PowerShell. You know, why we need PowerShell. Why we need PowerShell in the sense is like you need to do a lot of modifications in enterprise environment. You need to do like a lot of bulk changes. In each environment, the scenarios are different. So every time when you want to do something, if it's going to be like a one single change, it's much easier. You just use the GUI and you guys gonna change it. But if you guys gonna change bulk, you know, like 5 to 6 users or 1,000 users or 10,000 users, or if you want to see how these what is the exact data available in the environment to extract and watch, or if you want to export to your Power BI, or everywhere the PowerShell is used. And also whenever you want to do like any sort of bulk modifications, any sort of bulk modifications, in the sense like anything can't be done manual. In those days there was a lot of VB scripts in order to change stuff, but it was quite complicated. But PowerShell is much easier unless you understand it. If you understand it, you can manage and go through most of the environments. like PowerShell, you can use the PowerShell on Exchange-Online, Teams, and most of the things, like even you can navigate through PowerCLI as well. So let's see what are the most use cases. I'll go through the basics today, like how to do um, from where-object, select-object. We will go through all those stuff, which will definitely be useful to you. Hope you guys everybody can see my screen. If you guys have any trouble, please let us know. So what happens? Let's see. Okay, so let's consider from the basics. Like when you say PowerShell, you just like open PowerShell, like always do have an elevated command prompt. So like elevated PowerShell, you just click on run as administrator. Then each PowerShell has its own module. So whenever you want to connect to any module, like if you want to do like Exchange module, you just import the module. I'm not going to go through like how we should import the modules, but I have imported the modules already, like saving time on that. And once you do Connect-Exchangeonline, you can connect to the Exchange module, and exactly like for Microsoft Teams, like you can connect to Microsoft Teams, then you can connect. So so each PowerShell has its modules, and modules there is like public modules and there is like preview modules. So like if there is any new commandlet coming, is going to come on preview module. So we will get into that later, but for now let's learn how to navigate in PowerShell. I will share like in the steps in a different link so that you can know how to import modules and you can install these modules and connect to this. So let's see, let's consider if you want to do like, let's consider you want to do like get-mailbox, so whenever you want to do, so why we are doing like this, instead of using this thing, instead of doing in a GUI, why we are doing in PowerShell, in the sense like in order to do bulk navigations and bulk modification or bulk export, PowerShell is the only easiest way. So let's consider if you want to do like get-mailbox in a PowerShell in an Exchange module. Let's consider run get-mailbox, and you can see you get all the mailboxes. Okay, so let's consider if you want to do like filtering. Let's consider let's consider I want to retrieve only one mailbox. Let's consider I want to type only one mailbox. Then I type get-mailbox and type the mailbox name, and I do FL. So FL is like full list. So in order to navigate all the attributes of this object, you do get-mailbox and you do FL. So let's consider if you want to do FT, so FT is like if you want to do on this. So FL is like go on a listed module, and FT is like you go on a column, So most of the times FL is much easier because you get all the attributes and it's easy to watch through. So okay, so let's consider I want to do I want to filter. So in this PowerShell, what you need to do is, let me show you something. So there are three key components you need to know. Select-object, where-object, and Foreach-object. If you know all these three things, I think you can do almost like 98% of the scripts. When I say 98 on a L1, L2 level, you can do almost 98% of the scripts with all these three things. You can export, you can import, you can modify anything in bulk. So for any starter, I would say, like if you want to do something like any small changes, you should practice. Like you have to do even the small changes, you have to connect to the PowerShell module and try navigating through so that you slowly get through it. So let's consider I want to do, let's see where-object first, then we'll go to the next, okay? So let's consider I want to filter only this name, okay? So let's consider I want only alias Vaishika, for example, you know. So let's consider I want to type get-mailbox pipeline, then you do where-object, then you do $_dot, then alias. So why I'm typing alias here is like whenever you want to retrieve something here, so I want to, in the get-mailbox, I want to check alias name -like Vaishika, then I can retrieve only this name. So like is my favorite component because it supports wildcards. So for example, you can retrieve anything starts from V, for example, you know. So this is one of the good part on where-object. So once you do where-object, so in a specific case, why we are doing all this, you know, in terms of this, like let's consider in your enterprise environment, let's consider you want to take on a specific department, you collect values of a specific department, or you collect value of a specific employee numbers. You know, there are so many specifics. You know, there are a lot of attributes which are used in the enterprise environment. So you can get through and navigate through and watch over whatever data you can export it. So in order to filter on what the objects you want, this is the best place. You know, first. So when I say alias, alias is one of the examples. So if I want to filter, so let's consider I have how many filtering options I have, you know. So I have all these filtering options. So for example, I can check which mailboxes is message tracking status enabled, for example, you know. So anything from this list you can take, you know. For example, recipient type or anything from this list. Let's consider I want to type same. I'm using the same thing and I'm saying, let's consider you can take anything from this row, then you type here and say is valid like true, you know. So that is a where-object. So if in order to do more stuff, let's consider I want to take more filtering options. So let's consider I can take filtering options like is valid true, then I can do like this. I can say and I can say alias like Shika. So if I do like this, what happens here is, what I'm trying to do here is I'm checking is the account true? The account should be true, and the alias should be like Vaishika, or you know, it can be anything, you know. So what I'm trying to explain is, if you say and, it will support and or any objects like this, you know, and or you can almost like these are the values which you can use, and the most favorite value I use is like. You can use like, or you can say even you can say equal to, you know, equal to or not equal to. So it's going to work. So the first component which you need to learn is the where-object. So if you're very familiar with where-object, you can always practice, like even for like this, you know, get-service. So even if you just on your local machine, you do get-service, and I want to see any service starts with app, you know. So if I want to do like get-service pipeline where-object name like app, okay. So when you do this, this is your filtering options, you know. So let's consider I want to change, let's consider you have 2000 users in environment and or 5000 users or 10,000 users. And let's consider there is a task for you to, what is your extension numbers of this business unit or whatever business unit or which company, there is a lot of business requirements keep coming in order to extract the data. The where-object helps you so that you can filter, if you can say like company is a.com and he should be valid and his location should be Australia or United Kingdom, and you can say his extension should start with 5, so that this is the best place you filter the data, So in order anywhere if you want to filter the data, you will use where-object. So when you do where-object, then you take the option of so once you filter the object, then you can export. Let's consider I want to export this, let's consider I want to export this. So when you want to export, whenever you retrieve the data and when you want to export this data, that's where the select-object comes in, So whenever you want to export the data, so let's consider I want to do select-object, and in order to, when I select the object, I want to tell like which object I want to export. Let's consider in this case I want to export name and alias, So when I do like this, so I got the data, it would be like more columns, I just want this two data, and I'm just choosing one value so that it retrieves more quicker and easy to learn. You can do the same thing for 1000 objects, and if you want to do more than 1000 objects, you always should specify result size unlimited. So when you do this, it crosses 1000 objects. So more than 1000 objects, you always do result size unlimited, so it retrieves more than 1000 objects. And when you want to do, and you do the select-object, so I hope I'm clear that like when you do where-object, that's your filtering area. So you filter all the data and you take out the data, then you select what you want. So in this case, you're selecting name and alias, and you can export this data like export-CSV and say alias.csv. So once this is done, your CSV is exported, So if you see here, alias.csv, and let's consider opening into a notepad. So the CSV export is done. So this could be anytime, like even if you want to export, like with this concept can be used on Exchange Online. The same concept you can do on Microsoft Teams. So let's consider you use the Microsoft Teams module, then you do get-team. Then I say group ID, then it's just loading. So yeah, so let's consider I want to do get-team. Let's do the same. Okay, where-object, display name, like starts with test. So I'm just so this concept, if you once you understand this just one where-object concept, you can apply on Teams, for example. You can apply on Exchange Online, and you can apply on even PowerCLI. Let's consider if you want to do on a PowerCLI, you will do get-VM and pipeline where-object like name, like server 1, for example, So this will work, So once you so the concept, once you understand this where-object concept, you can apply this get-service or get-mailbox, or you can apply get-team, or you can apply get-AD user on Active Directory modules, or you can apply on Azure AD. Everything works. So you just understand one concept once you do the where-object, you filter out the most of the data you require. Then you take off the data. Then you do select-object. So you choose the columns what to export. Then you export to CSV. So this is much easier. Let's do much more samples on, like, let's consider I want to let's consider this example. And so I'm just doing in the same thing, get-mailbox, where-object, and if like custom attribute 12 is Office 365, give me this, Let's consider I want to check, compare two attributes. In this case, let's compare two attributes. So in this case, what I'm doing is get-mailbox, where-object, custom attribute 12 is like Office 365 and custom attribute 13 not like Office 365, So why I'm saying this is, you can say like last log on is this year and he should be valid, So or you can do anything comparatively. The most use cases, like whenever you have any email signature softwares, most of the time is custom attributes. So what we usually check is like, if your primary business unit is A, is it the correct signature branding is applying on the custom attribute 1, So it's one of the most use cases in many enterprise environments. That is, hope I cleared where-object. And let's consider if you want to import something, if you want to, let's do some CSV imports. So let's consider CSV importing is like, so whenever you exported the CSV from a PowerShell, you can see these double quotes, So what happens here is when these double quotes are required, if these double quotes are not there, if you're exporting from a different system, PowerShell is not going to understand it properly. So the best case is like whenever you want to import something, you have to make sure these codes are there. You can use Excel and you can export it in a proper way, so you get these codes on a proper delimited CSV file. So if these codes are not there, it's not going to understand very well. So let's consider import-CSV. I will do alias.csv. So, and you can build any notepad, like for example, build any CSV file. So I can say test2 .csv. So let's open this. So let's check what is the email of this. So let's consider I want to export this. Let's consider I want to build a CSV file from a different system, for example. So let's consider take my email as well. So once you do this CSV is not a valid one, but if you're going to put this quotes, then if you do import hyphen, let's do in this exchange module, import-CSV. See, whenever you want to use PowerShell, this tab key plays a major role. If the command is going to be valid. So let's consider I'm typing import-and I'm pressing my tab key. So this tab key really helps. You don't have to remember each and every command. So let's consider I want to import the CSV I built. So if you see here, if I say email and I list my emails. So once the CSV is imported, I can see it in a PowerShell. If I want to save to a variable, I can do like this and use it anywhere, or I can just say import-CSV. So just now, all I'm doing is the CSV can be read by the PowerShell. It's not doing anything else. So let's do like let's consider I want to build Let's consider this. Okay, so I have a CSV file called test.csv. If you open this test.csv, you have two emails. Okay, so once this is done, what I'm doing is, see, let's consider if I have one object, if I have one object, I will show you the best place. Yeah. So let's consider if I'm getting two objects, okay, and if I want to do set -mailbox. So in this, if you see in this last example I explained, if when I do where-object, then I do $_ and I filtered the values I want. Now I have two options. One, I can do, if I want to apply any new values, I can do set -mailbox, and let's consider I want to set custom attribute 5 to like Azure. If I want to do like this, I can do like this. So I want to explain like what is the difference between set -mailbox and for each -object. So I hope by this time you guys will know how to filter where-object, and if I want to export any data, I will use select -object and choose the columns I want, and I export the data. So once you are familiar with where-object and select -object, you are clear on filtering the objects and you're exporting the required objects. So with this too, you can achieve almost anything on exporting stuff. But when you want to import stuff from, like, let's consider you have the most use cases is like you get like 500 or 600 columns of Excel sheet, and if you want to import some data, or all their employee extension numbers are changing, so there are so many requirements happening in a large enterprise environment which this is needed. So let's consider I want to set -mailbox like so in this case, I'm doing get -mailbox where-object, and I filtered the volumes, filter the attributes, then I do set -mailbox, then I do custom attribute 5, and what I'm doing is whatever object I retrieved, so whatever object I retrieved here, I'm going to apply some sort of value. This could be like anything, this could be anything in each, let's consider in a VMware environment, you might retrieve all the VMs of non-critical VMs and you assign a tag called non-critical, or you could retrieve all your some business unit and you add some custom attribute, So there could be like so many scenarios in this, but once you start understanding this, you can do like bulk modifications. But the most needed part is what you need to understand is the riskiness, So let's consider this filter was wrong and your users are like 1,000 users, and you're going to do bulk changes on 1,000 users by mistake. It could be like it is irreversible. You cannot reverse it just like that. So how you will safeguard from this? The first thing is whenever you retrieve on any modules like VMware or PowerShell or Azure AD, when you retrieve from this place, your command is clear that it's retrieving only 2 objects. So when you do pipeline here, it's going to apply whatever changes you're going to make. It's going to apply only to this or 2 objects. So let's consider I want to apply some sort of value. Let's consider I want to some sort of custom attribute 4, for example, and I apply some value. So before I am applying, I have an option called what if. So this what if is very good because it will not apply. It's going to tell what it's going to do before it's going to apply. So when I'm doing what if, it from here I get confidence 20% that I'm touching only 2 objects. Then the rest of like 30% of confidence I'm getting from here. So now I am very clear that I'm applying or changing stuff only to 2 objects only, or 500 objects. or 300 objects, or it could be 10,000 objects. So once I am clear that it is employing only the objects which I need, then you remove the what if and you run the command. So this is one part. The other part is in terms of an enterprise environment, it's always you to safeguard with logs. What you can do is you can start transcript and you can say take commands, or you can say save commands. It's just a friendly name. You can do whatever you want. Yeah, save commands.txt. So what it happens is whenever you start transcripts, what happens here is it's going to save all these things, whatever you're going to type. So let's consider I'm going to do some project and then I do what if and I save and I remove the what if, then I run this, then I stop my transcript, then I save this file in my change management, so it's going to save a file like this. So you're clear that the session was started by you, what time, so this stuff is very clear. So this is to safeguard you, and it helps in it also saves, like if it acts as an evidence on what changes you made. Otherwise there is no track. You have event logging, but it's more complex to retrieve the required data. Okay, so let's consider so now where -object, now what is select-object. Now let's see, let's do some more examples on import-CSV so that it'll be easier for you to understand for each -object. So let's consider in this case what I'm doing is import-CSV, and I'm saying for each -object, and I'm saying get the mailboxes. So it doesn't do anything, it's just for you to understand. So for example, if my CSV file is going to have only one object, then you don't have to do for each -object. For example, if you want to add add 1,000 users to a distribution group, or remove specific set of users from a distribution group, then it works like for each -object. What for each -object does is, let's consider your CSV sheet has 300 objects or 200 objects or 400 objects. What it's going to do is it's going to take the first object and run it here. So what I'm doing is in my CSV file, let's open the CSV file. Open with Notepad. So what I'm saying here is, let's consider here in this CSV file, what I'm saying is import the CSV, then for each object on my CSV, pass this one by one. So this passes the first value to this. Once the command is executed, it passes the second value from the CSV sheet to this. But now I have to tell the distribution group member, so let's consider in this case, in this specific example, I'm just doing a sample of get-mailbox. I'm saying in my previous example, so let's consider I want to do get-mailbox, then I do like this, but if I want to do get-mailbox for all the CSV sheet emails, there is no such command. You cannot do like this. It will not work. So you cannot pass all the CSV into this. So you have to use for each -object in order to pass each value one by one. So let's consider in this case I have a CSV of 200 objects and I want to pass 200 objects. So the first thing what I would do is I will do the CSV and I make the columns are there. Is it in the right format? Everything is fine. Then I do for -object get-mailbox and I run this. Let's consider I put as an email which is not there in the system. xxx@azure365. Let's consider this employee left or the employee is not there. So what it's going to do is it's clearly going to tell us this object is not there in the system and this CSV sheet is exported, whichever system you're exporting from, it's not accurate, or the email ID changed. So it clearly gives you a definition like your CSV file is not valid. So it's much easier. So when you have a CSV sheet, if you quickly want to validate, it could be your team's name, it could be your VM name, it could be your Azure AD name, it could be of anything, So I'm just telling my use examples, but you can use it in your environment, in your most used case. So let's consider I want to take a CSV file and I want to apply some custom attributes. So in the example, what I'm doing, like import-CSV and take the CSV files. Then I do like for each -object. So each value will pass into this one by one. So once I do that, so what happens here is when the first object goes in, I'm using this $_.email. So when I do $_.email, it takes the first column and uses the values below this. So then I do custom attribute 12 and Office 365. So then it's always put to quotes, Then what happens here is it's already applied. So it's just saying there's no settings has been modified. So what you can do is, let's consider if you want to clear the attribute, you can just say $null, So in the same way, you can apply, maybe you can take a CSV file and you can export or you can add distribution group members, So let's consider this CSV file, and if you want to add this to a distribution group, you can say take the CSV file and these how many files, and let's consider for each -object, then I'm going to use add-distribution-group-member and in the identity. So whenever you want to do any sort of this stuff, you can take this value, then you can try running like this, So let's consider if you want to put your DGName, and let's consider you want to type like Satish, for example. So once you do this, you are making sure what are the values needed for this command to succeed. Then you take the values from a CSV sheet and you pass on the columns. So even this DGName could be in the next column, So it could be like comma DGName, and you can take the value from DG. So let's consider like this. Then your DGName could be like, let's do like this. Yeah, so if my CSV sheet is going to be test DG. So in this case, let's consider I have a test distribution group. Then let's consider I'm going to do like this DG. So what happens here is I'm going to take $_._DG, and in the member I should use email. So you can pass any column from the CSV to your command, but if it's going to be multiple objects, you cannot pass directly, so you have to use for each -object. And let's catch some questions so that, yeah. Is FL and FT is an acronym for actual commands. So in this case, yeah, FL is you can even, I don't even remember. It's called full list and format list, something like that, and I don't exactly know. Yes, it's an acronym. You can type the full, but I always use FL and FT, and I'm used to it nowadays. And is there an advantage of using Microsoft PowerShell ISE instead of Anaconda PowerShell prompt? See, PowerShell ISE is something amazing because it gives you the color code and all sort of fancy stuff. But for me, personally, I'm not liking PowerShell ISE, but most of the PowerShell guys use on PowerShell because the only thing is it's not easier to load this Exchange module or Teams module and unload it easily on PowerShell IC. It's my experience, but it's totally a personal choice. But for starters, I totally recommend PowerShell IC. It's much easier to go through and that part. And can you share some examples from MS Teams? Yeah, let's see some examples on MS Teams. So I have a blog post which I wrote recently. So let's consider in this blog post, let's consider, I'm not going to go through how to import modules and stuff. So this is the requirement, for me, what need to be done is like I want to copy like channel members and I want to paste to a different channel, private channel, So what I'm doing here is this. One second. Yeah, so I can put the link in the next one, but this is what needs to be done is like you do getting the channel user here and in the same format, and you're saving all the members. I will share this link. It's much easier, but exactly the same var-object, select-object, same things I used. It will be easily understandable for you. Okay. And let's go to some other questions. What do you think command prompt was replaced with PowerShell in Windows 10? Like PowerShell is everything, man. For example, let's consider you can do almost anything with PowerShell. I don't see a need to use command prompt unless you're doing some NetBIOS commands. Even most of the commands works in PowerShell as well, so I don't see a need to use command prompt anymore. I think 10 years back I joined my career. I started with PowerShell itself, so I never used the command prompt, to be frank. So I started with PowerShell and I never touched VB script. So I like PowerShell and I'm using this for a while, so I don't see a need of command prompt. It's there or not there. I don't see a point here. Can I compare two lists or objects and identify differences? Yes. What you can do is just say compare if an object, and you can do that. But what I'm seeing is it's kind of an Excel job. If you can. For me, I don't do comparison on the PowerShell itself. What I usually do is I can take one column of CSV in Excel sheet, and Excel has a lot more features which you can navigate through. You can filter, you can concatenate, and let's consider, let's do some stuff, Yeah, so what I usually do is this one part I need to cover, for example, let's consider I want to add some test and I want to have quotes to this. So what I usually do is I just do concatenate like this, then I say this, just 1 second, and I choose this, comma, the value, then comma, and I get the quotes again. So yeah, so if you do concatenate of this, let me do one more time this. Yeah, so let's consider I have some more columns and more things. I want to put quotes, or let's consider I have test@domain.com and I want to take, let's consider this was a UPN or a SAM account name which I want to take off this. Then you use I think it's having an option called text to columns. Then you say delimited, then say this, then say at, then say next, finish. For example, you split. So it could be 1,000 columns or 2,000 columns. Excel has most amazing features to filter, export, instead of using on PowerShell, compare if an object and complicate yourself, better take the data out to CSV, put it on Excel sheet and do whatever you want comparison. You do VLOOKUP, you have more complex stuff which you can do. Yeah, do I need to upgrade PowerShell version? Is this the default version is good enough? No, you don't need to update anything. If your Windows 10 version is good, I think it supports most of the versions. You don't need to upgrade anything if you're running Windows 10 latest version. And can we use PowerShell in multiple operating systems, Windows and Linux? Yes, it is possible. But in terms of Linux, I'm not a Linux user, but Windows, and even you can run from an automation account, So what happens in this case, olden days, what you need to do is you need to run a PowerShell in a task scheduler in order to run every day to do some tasks. In one of the most common examples is, let's consider I want to, when a new user is created, add this custom attribute to the user. So what we usually do is you just get -ou, like let get -mailbox. Let's consider this. Yeah, if you do get -mailbox, and let's consider if you want to add some value, and let's consider I want to set some mailbox, So this could be get -mailbox, organizational unit, new users, OU, This is a proper format like a distinguished name. You can Google that, and new user, and you say set -custom attribute, So -mailbox custom attribute. So you can run this in a task scheduler and run it every day 5 p.m. That is old story. But what is the future is doing like these automation accounts. What these automation accounts are doing is you can put all these scripts into the automation account and run it every day. For example, you create an automation account, you go to automation account and you click on add, and you create the automation account. So once you add, you have runbooks. So once you have runbooks, this is the classic example of like, let's consider one of the use case. I want to export one CSV file from all the VMs list of a VMware environment, and I put it on a location so that users can use it, and the same location is uploaded to Power BI also. So this is one of the use case on an enterprise environment. So what I'm doing here is I'm connecting to vCenter, like Connect-VS server. Then I save to export path. This is one of fine script. I don't think which you need to look at in the start, but if you're going through select-where, it's your basics, but for complex users, you can do these stuff. And the same script, what you need to do is you can run on a hybrid worker. This VM doesn't need to be on Azure. This VM can be running on your local environment, so that whenever your runbook runs, it initiates the scripts from your local server, and it does changes on your local environment and in Azure also. So it's up to you. Okay, and what is the most user-friendly environment of PowerShell ISC? What I spent last 10 years, to be frank, this is the most simplest place you can learn. For me, PowerShell, just the module ISC. If you are working with Exchange-Online and Teams, different modules, it's much better. You just create a new session and you connect, so you're very clear which module you are in, and it's much easier. But it's a personal choice. I cannot say which is your favorite, but my favorite one is just the PowerShell session, so that the errors are clear, everything is clear for me. So what is the difference between PowerShell ISC in case of a Linux environment? So there is no difference between PowerShell and PowerShell ISC. It's just the same thing. So you just run the same commands in PowerShell ISC. There is no difference. So only thing is when you do some errors, it's going to be much easier for you. It's going to, it looks much better on the format. If you're a really starter and you've never used PowerShell in your whole life, then you can start with PowerShell ISC as a starter. But it's totally a personal choice. You can do this or use this, both are the same. If you're trying to type long scripts, it's like asking, do you use Notepad or Notepad++? Yeah, Notepad is much enough, but Notepad++ gives you more convenience on the lines. It's exactly the same. So if you want to use PowerShell is your Notepad, and Notepad++ is your PowerShell ISC in simpler words. Yeah, is there any violation that where we should use PowerShell commands in production environment? If so, where we can get the document to know the commands we should be using in production environment? See, there is no violation, but if you're a starter, never do like set hyphen and never do remove hyphen, so that you don't screw the environment, So let's consider when you do import-CSV in this example, So I will tell you like what is the worst thing like a basic administrator can do on PowerShell so that you can act safer. So let's consider this CSV format is not good, So let's consider this CSV format doesn't have quotes, So what happens here is when the CSV format is not good, the PowerShell is not going to understand properly. So when you do like this, it may take some other objects which is not supposed to take, So the only thing you can identify is you can do what if so that you are clear. And also what you can do is once you change, so let's consider once you change some stuff let's consider I'm adding distribution group to a distribution members to a distribution group. At the end of the day, you can count the distribution members. Like let's consider you run the whole command get-distribution group in the same example, like I can do .count, So let's consider you have an empty distribution group in the classic example, you have an empty distribution group and your CSV has like 36 members. So end of the day, your distribution group member, should count the same CSV file, So I'm giving you an example in this case. So let's consider, I'm not sure I have some distribution groups. Distribution group. So let's consider I want to check get-distribution group member like this. Then I can do like, let's consider I have 36 members. I should get like 36 count, So I'm not getting anything because it's just doesn't have just have one value. So let's check the next question. Can one start a new PowerShell session or each line when processing and imported? Can one start a PowerShell session or each line? I'm not understanding your question, Mike. You can rephrase or contact me later. I'll let you know. And how safe it is to use the mail in the production environment? Is there any validation or protect to? How safe it is to use the mail in the production environment? Is there any validation that we can protect to send outbound mails? In terms of PowerShell, like outbound mails, you have DKIM, DMARC. There are so many ways. It's a totally different discussion. We can come back to that. And I assume you can use PowerShell for SharePoint too. Yes, exactly. You have a the good part of PowerShell, which I personally like, is let's consider you are entering a VMware environment. Some PowerShell module is there. You apply the same select, where, for each, and you do everything. So which is the good part. And you have so many modules from Azure AD, Azure, and even like enterprise vaults. The olden technologies have these PowerShell as well. Can you show how you can check a file which contains a list of servers? From what list I need to check particular service? Start, yeah. So I will give you some basics which you can rephrase it later. What I usually do is I have the sample. I can just chat with me. I will give you like what is the classic example is we have like 37 servers, And let's consider we need to restart one specific service on 37 servers. You don't have to go each server and restart 37 same service on the 37 servers. It can be one PowerShell command. I can show you in a different session. I think we're almost in end of the session. And yeah, so this is almost done. Let's see if I have missed anything from my list so that I can add you. Yeah. So what is the other thing is, if you want to enter enter any server, like enter-ps session, or enter any like a Windows VM, So what you can do is you can do enter-session VM name, then you enter the session of the computer, then you run commands. When you do, after entering PS session, when you enter, like let's consider I want to restart some service, you enter the PS session, then you do get-service, and let's consider where-object, then name, like app star, So what I'm doing is I'm just collecting all the service starts with app, then I can do restart -service, or I can stop the service, or the usual case is if the VM is fully hung, what you can do is set -service type manual, so you have so many options like that. Okay, so usual case we set the service to manual, so when the VM boots up you don't have much of a problem. And the paste the blog link, yeah, I will share it with you, man. Yeah, I pasted you this link, and I hope the session was good and I covered most of the stuff. And it was just sitting in a room alone, and just talking alone is a bit weird nowadays, but I'm just getting used to it. And I hope the session was good, and thank you guys, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Satish, for today's session. I'm gonna start screen sharing. Interesting things that I want to share with the community. All right, I think it's good now. I'll just. All right, so there's this module where you can continue the journey and learn more on Microsoft Learn. So if you check out this link, which I will share with you in the Q&A section, you can actually watch that module and like take that module. And there are many learning paths on Microsoft Learn, which will help you continue the journey and learn more. And there are a few interesting workshops as well this week that it will be great for you to join. And there is a session tomorrow on Rust programming basics. So basically, Rust is a language that empowers developers build reliable and efficient software. It's easy to write and read, high performing. And in this workshop, we will explore all the basics and how you can start coding in Rust. So join us tomorrow at 4 p.m. local time, Abu Dhabi time. And we will be doing that workshop. As usual, there are so many workshops we're doing on Mondays, 4 p.m. On different modules coming from the Reactor, all on basics of JavaScript, TypeScript. In the past weeks we had, and this week we're doing on Rust. And then there is a session on Wednesday earlier in the morning. It will be on using Azure Data Studio with Python for machine learning. So for data scientists, the data cleaning process is all about identifying incorrect, incomplete, or missing parts of the data, replacing, modifying as needed. And in this session, we will be having an opportunity to discover the available resources and tools to build and test Python and machine learning So that will be on Wednesday. There are more sessions as well on the calendar. If you check it out on Meetup, I linked that also for you in the announcements section. You can check that out and make sure you're joining our Meetup community. We recently crossed 2,000 members, and it is great. We're so happy to have you all. And there is also an important one here. Every session has a code. This one is 10,000, and you can use that code on the survey link. So basically on the survey, we're trying to understand more from you, the sessions and the topics that you would love to see in the Reactor. So please take a minute to take this survey and provide us some feedback. And also don't forget to join our YouTube channel. So this session is recorded and will be available at a later point on YouTube. A few of you asked me in the Q&A about that. So if you use the same live stream link, it will be available for about the next 16 hours, and also soon will be on YouTube. Also, don't forget to sign up for our monthly newsletter. That's the last link, the Reactor email. And this one, we put together all the upcoming sessions, the interesting stuff that we're doing, not just from Abu Dhabi, but from all around the globe. And that's pretty much it. Thank you again for being part of the community and for joining us on today's session. Stay safe, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you, guys.